Sup y'all, and welcome to the Age of Reason, Unit 6, from circa 1600 to circa 1750, Part 1. In this video, we're going to be investigating the Age of Reason by starting to look at the Age of Absolutism.
By the 1600s, French absolutism was a system of governance in which no institution could check the power of the king. The legislature and the courts were all under the king's control. He ruled under the divine right, in which the king's authority was said to come directly from God himself and could not be limited or challenged. Notice in this painting, the king is being crowned by the hand of God. Louis XIII became the king of France when he was only 9 years old. His father, Henry IV, had been stabbed to death by a radical Catholic. Being too young to effectively rule, Cardinal Richelieu became the king's chief minister, making the major decisions for the country for many years. Richelieu's major goal was to strengthen the monarchy and remove all obstacles to royal authority. The two main obstacles were the French Protestants, or Huguenots, and the nobility. Concerning the Huguenots, Richelieu maintained the part of the Edict of Nantes that guaranteed civil and religious rights, but he had the king annul the section that guaranteed places of safety, or basically fortified cities. In time, the French army crushed all opposition. And although Richelieu didn't remove the nobility, he weakened their authority by sending royal agents across the country to deal with citizens directly and leveled any unnecessary castles. This obviously weakened the nobles' influence. The king who would become the ultimate example of absolutism in Europe was Louis XIV. He became king at age 5, and a regent council ruled until he was of age. In 1648, a rebellion led by nobles known as the Fronde, which means sling, took control of the country until 1653. This event left a strong impression on young Louis XIV. When he finally became king, he moved his court, his government, and key nobles about 12 miles outside of Paris to a fabulous palace eventually built called Versailles, which was essentially an elaborate prison, because the nobles had to serve the king hand and foot in order to advance in power. This is similar to the Tokugawa shoguns, in which he kept his friends close and his enemies closer. You could say that his motto was "L'État c'est moi," which means "I am the state." In 1685, Louis XIV revoked the Edict of Nantes. This was also done to create a more cohesive nation-state. He enforced the philosophy of one faith, one law, one king. And as a consequence of his actions, over 200,000 Huguenots emigrated out of France. This hurt them economically, as many productive people left the country. Louis XIV adopted the sun as his emblem, and is often referred to as the Sun King. The rays symbolized the extent of his power. He also had a vast army raised, the greatest in the world at that time. In fact, many ranks in today's army reflect this, ranks such as the sergeant, lieutenant, colonel, and others clearly display the French influence. Throughout his reign, France fought 4 major wars, expanding his land, but at a tremendous cost. In order to maintain a balance of power in Europe, many countries would unite their forces to stop France from expanding too far. By the 1700s, the French revenues were drained, and although France was the most powerful country in the world, they faced massive debts and an uncertain future. To understand the degree to which absolutism was practiced in various European states, we must first look to not geography.
Yes, well!
No, we must look to political organization. In France, most peasants were free, and they had a strong middle class. This meant that the nobles were relatively weak, leading to France being dominated by absolutism. In Austria and Prussia, the peasants were mostly serfs, bound to the land they worked on, and since there was no strong middle class, the monarchs relied on powerful nobles to collect the taxes and staff the armies. So these countries displayed a mixture of absolutism and aristocracy. Now, the Austrian Habsburgs ruled over a multinational state. In 1683, they defended their capital, Vienna, against the Turks, and then drove them out of Hungary by the end of the 1600s, making them even more diverse. Even though the Habsburgs sought to become absolute monarchs, they allowed the different regions to retain their own laws and customs, so you could say their power was checked by regionalism. In Prussia, The Hohenzollerns acquired a multinational and fragmented empire in northern Europe. In the 1640s, the King of Prussia made a deal with his nobles, the Junkers. That is, if they would provide loyal military service to him, they would be exempt from taxes and could completely rule over their peasants. The Junkers recruited tall, imposing soldiers, and by 1688, they had a powerful 40,000-man army. The Junkers willingly granted the Hohenzollerns extensive political authority, but they were indeed checked due to the power of the military.
That is correct.